A Husker touchdown.
Who do you think you're fooling? Nobody's thinking about their job the day before a Husker game.
Hills the throw. Blitz picked up. Harris went out deep right sideline. 50-50 ball. It's picked off. The black shirts with a dagger. Malcolm Hartzog with a giant pick. Sails the night for the Big Red. Drifts back to throw. Dumps it to an underneath crosser. Goody made the catch. Got popped. Ball's loose, but they say incomplete.
This is the Friday Husker Tailgate with Jack Mitchell, Nate Rohr, John Bishop, and Kevin Suits on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KI.
All right, welcome in. 6:05, November 21st, 2025, and it is the final occurring on a Friday Husker Tailgate of the year. Be doing it on Wednesday next week prior to Black Friday. And so, as John has been saying on his show this week, welcome to the final normal week of football of the year that we are now wrapping up here on a Friday morning. I'm Jack Mitchell. Got Nate Rohr in here. As always, Kenny Larrabee doing our video producing. If you want to check us out on video, you can on the KLIN Twitter or YouTube page, or you can go to my Twitter as well. And we've got it rolling there. And John Bishop, of course, from 1620 The Zone. And today, Kevin Suits en route to Penn State, which, as I've heard, I've never been there, but it is a major undertaking to travel there. And so Kevin, I think, needed to get started a couple of days ago. I think he's still in somewhere over Ohio right now.
Youngstown, Ohio, now.
That's where he is right now.
Dodging the Pelini field.
So he will, his picks are in with us, though, but we will have Kevin back with us on Wednesday, and John will be traveling on a Wednesday, or will have traveled. He'll be in the City of Sin in Las Vegas, covering the great, wonderful Creighton Blue Jays. I would say one of the maybe top three-quarters teams in the Big East this year. So very exciting for you, John. Hello.
One of the best three Division I men's basketball teams in the state.
Easily.
Some would say.
Easily.
I'm going to ignore
easily
the ignorance.
This is going to be a fun winter.
That is coming from this room, because we have an important thing to talk about.
Oh, really?
Morning.
Oh, really?
I was in the car. You know, I like to turn on the music in the car. And the first song that was on in the car this morning as I made my way here through the endless road construction was a song by Def Leppard called Photograph. That song came out in the year of our Lord 1983. And this song, it took me back. It took me back, Mean Gene. It took me back to a time in my life, a very influential time in my life. You know, there are things that happen in a person's life. The birth of your first child, when you met your wife, and when you realized the referees could be bought and sold like commodities on the open market. In 1983, Nebraska played a game in the Giant Stadium against Penn State. Nebraska got its rightful revenge for a game that was played 11 months earlier. And that was one of those monumental moments when some geeky, four-eyed, white shirt wearing, black cleat wearing, high water pants wearing, goober of a coach bought and paid for the referees and stole our title, like the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase when he got that plastic surgery on the referee and he stole the Hoax title. Joe Paterno stole Tom Osborne's title. It was the only loss that year. So in 1983, Tom Osborne said, "Let there be no doubt that we are going to wipe the floor with these plain label beer uniformed wearing. True flyover country living. I mean, think about it. State colleges in the middle of nowhere. Planes don't even fly over it because it's so dang boring. At least here we grow the food. What do? Oh, we got an ice cream store. I don't care. We got ice cream too. And it's pretty doggone good.
Damn right.
And that's why to this very day, 2 things I learned. I don't trust a referee as far as I can throw him. And I hate Penn State. So on the 23rd, Joe Paterno, your soul is coming to me in Pershing Auditorium. It's my long-winded way of saying good morning, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
And people look at me funny when I rant about 1982 and Penn State.
I'm serious, man. I'm dead serious. That is the moment where I completely and unequivocally started believing that referees were the devil.
But you've worked through it,
11-year-old John Bishop.
I was oh man, I was so wound up. My dad sent me away, man, because I was like, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. He was out of bounds.
I believe that is the first game I remember watching. Now I would have been 5 years old, but I do remember that win, or excuse me, that loss. I don't remember the next year. I don't remember the next year watching it. What I do,
that's because it was a Monday night.
It was a
the
Monday
first kickoff
night?
Started was a Monday night.
That's probably why I probably had to go to bed.
Yeah,
so did I was 6. Yeah,
yeah. We were going. I was starting. That was the year I started junior high, and yeah, school was starting it started that Monday.
Okay. Okay.
And so yeah, it was a late game. Now, just to show you how special Nebraska football is versus Monday Night Football, I was actually allowed to stay up and watch that game.
Nice.
Normally, that was back in the day where I had to go to bed at halftime.
Yep, I had
Monday
that
Night
too.
Football, but yeah, that was a Monday night, and they won 44-6.
Yeah, but what I do remember is I had I would have been in preschool then, out in Mitchell, South Dakota, and they had we did a worksheet. It was like all about me, right? And it was like all these things, and it had all these like open-ended questions, and they were trying to get kids to write and do things. And they said the one thing what is your favorite thing in the world? And I said something like pizza, right? Or something like that.
Of course you did.
And what is the one thing that you don't like? And I don't know if it meant food or what it is, but little Jack Mitchell, 6 years old, at preschool, the Dakota Wesleyan University preschool in Mitchell, South Dakota, wrote the words, the things he didn't like, PEEN STATE, and I still have it. And now I always think of good old Penn State.
Penn State. I remember and we'll have some highlights later when the first time Nebraska played Penn State I guess we would call it the modern era, because they've played back, going back to the 50s, the 40s, whatever. But 1979, and I remember when they played, because that was the year after Penn State lost the Sugar Bowl on the goal line stand. Alabama stopped them at the 1 yard line on 4th down, and they won the Sugar Bowl, and Bear Bryant won the national title. But then the next year, Penn State came to Lincoln, and I can just remember, thinking, what is Penn State?
Right.
Did they turn the word state Penn around? Right. I mean, what is going on? And I remember Mom explaining, well, that's short for Pennsylvania State.
Right.
And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, well, we don't call it Oklahoma State.
That's a good point.
It's Oklahoma State.
No one does it.
Right? I don't get this. Why don't they just call it Pennsylvania State? I guess the whole, shortening with the syllables and all. But yeah, I remember they were kind of a weird team, right? Because they were independent. Right.
Yes. Independent. The name was weird. The blank white helmets.
Everything plain label, just ugly. And then that four-eyed goober white shirt wearing, that guy looked totally out of place on a football sideline as their coach. But that's and now it's funny because you fast forward, you kind of appreciate the fact that they still wear the same ugly plain label uniforms, and they're still called Penn State. Now they're, of course, they're in the Big Ten, but so are we.
Right.
But yeah, I always remember being a little confused by them because they didn't fit my worldview of, being in a conference and, having a normal name. We didn't call him I-State. We called him Iowa State.
Right.
Although K-State now.
Yeah. Although I don't think
back then we were calling them a win. Yeah. We were calling them homecoming. Who's this homecoming on the schedule? Oh, that's Kansas State. Who?
Yes, that's true.
Also, in that 1983 game, the year after, there was also a young man in the house for that game, probably 7-8 years old, going to his first ever college football game. Big Penn State fan, there to support the Nittany Lions and hoping to see what he'd seen again in 1982, along with his father at that game in person. That man's name, Matt Rule. First game he ever went to was against Penn State.
Well, Matt, Nebraska, I'm glad you were crying your little 7 years old or whatever you were eyes out then, because back in Fremont, Nebraska, I was like, more.
And by the way, also in that game, the yell squad leader for Nebraska, time saver traffic zone, Chris Lofgren. First game of the year he was the yell squad leader.
That might be like the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, where there's a certain something about that day, November.
It's like a Forrest Gump.
What is it? November 5th, 1955.
Yeah.
Where it's like everything seems to happen there. It's like a portal in time.
Yes, I think it was. I think it was
the kickoff classic.
It set many things in motion decades ago. But you do actually make a good point. This was it was, at least in our minds as kids then, it was because the only conference rival was Oklahoma at that point. The Colorado thing wasn't a thing yet at that point.
I mean, Missouri
to the degree
Missouri was more of a they're just dirty and blah blah blah. But
that had kind of happened before I remembered, and so outside of Oklahoma, Penn State was kind of it there for a few years in terms of.
It was
being
before
the rivalry.
Miami bubbled up.
Exactly. Before Miami.
Right before Miami.
Miami hadn't been a thing. Colorado wasn't really a thing. The only thing was Oklahoma. And for a few years, I think if you had asked me, and I know it was very little then, but I would have said it's, and I remember the Penn State games more than I remember the Oklahoma games in those years.
Yeah.
For whatever
because they played
reason.
4 years in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or five years in a row.
It seemed like I don't even know that I understoed conferences that well. It seemed like they were just
there.
A regular
every
opponent.
September. They were there.
Just like they were. And it is a little bit odd. I heard I think it was on your show, John, maybe. Yeah, I think it was. I was listening to your show this week, and I don't know who you were talking to, so you'll have to remember. But you and Josh had asked something about, hey, what do you think it's going to be like in there for the Penn State game? And maybe this was the interview Josh did for the I-80 Club, but the Penn State guest said, yeah, well, you got to remember there's a lot of older fans at Penn State who still consider Nebraska a rivalry, and kind of said the same thing going the other way, but they didn't. So when did they play after that little early 80s chunk? When did they
the next time would have been
2002.
that 2002 debacle.
That whole time they never played.
Yeah.
But
the
1994 national championship day. It's interesting.
There's another reason
there was history between Nebraska and Penn State even before they started playing on a regular basis. Toward the end of Bob Devaney's tenure as head coach, Joe Paterno gave an interview about how Nebraska's academics were poor and that Nebraska didn't really care about the academic outcomes of their players. And of course, that miffed Bob Devaney. He famously wrote a letter to Bear Bryant saying, hey, we need to calm down Joe Paterno. But at any rate, there were some hard feelings there anyway. And then, of course, they played. The 82 game was so heated. The 83 game was kind of the beginning of Nebraska's steamrolling to the national championship game. And then, you guys talk about 82 and 83. I mean, the 94 thing for me was about the age. I was the age you guys were when the 80. So some of my formative memories are looking at Penn State and going, come on, Nebraska just beat number 2 Colorado. They just beat number 3 Miami on the road. Like, you think you could hold up against us? Really?
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, you guys aren't exactly an old blood Big Ten team. Why don't you drop the rinky dink thing and come play us somewhere and we can settle this once and for all.
Right.
And by the way, they'll be able to handle it. And of course, Penn State did not, but they've just had their moments where they've bubbled up every so often. And it's weirdly about once a decade, because the Paterno letter the Paterno quotes about Nebraska's academics were in the 70s. The controversy in 82, the national championship in 94, the early 2000s they just played. And remember that 02 game was kind of the canary in the coal mine that, oh, geez, this is going to be a long year.
Yeah.
Is that Penn State team ran Nebraska off the field. And then, of course, Nebraska joins the Big Ten, and their first meeting and remember, in the Legends and Leaders days, Penn State and Nebraska would play every year.
Yeah.
They were scheduled to. Of course, that didn't last. But, of course, the first time they play, famously, was the first game after the Sandusky issues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jack
So-
and I have memories of that week.
Yeah, we talked. I talked about it a little this week, but John and I we had a previously scheduled interview with Tom Osborne, thanks to an arrangement we had made with the athletic department, where we talked to one of the assistant coaches exclusively every week, and we got Tom Osborne every year as a part of it. And this was, for whatever reason, we had scheduled Osborne that week. I don't know if we did it because it was Penn State or why, but
It just happened that way.
it was either Monday or Tuesday of that week. I think it might have been Monday. And so we had an appointment to go to his office and walk on up there. And this was while it was still almost 24/7 coverage on like the news and ESPN of what was going on at Penn State at that time.
Yeah,
right.
the Sandusky stuff had kind of broken the previous Saturday.
Right. And I think, I think the night before might have been when you had the famous like Joe Paterno out on his porch, right, waving at the students thing.
Mhm.
Yep.
So we meet with Osborne, and Osborne in true fashion didn't cancel the interview or anything like that.
Nope.
And so we went there and we asked him, I need to see if I have that interview actually, because we asked him, hey, you think you're going to play this game? And he basically said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right at that point. And about halfway through the interview, I look over at a full glass windows in his office where his assistant sat out there, and there's kind of a lobby. Some other athletic department executives, administrators had offices in that area. And I see this guy is peeping in there. He's looking at our meeting. It's like, who is that? It's Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini waiting
Waiting for us
to finish our interview with Tom Osborne for the show, so he can talk to Tom Osborne about whether they're going to play the game or not.
Yeah.
And I remember we then went out and we talked.
We basically flipped. Bo came in. We finished the interview.
Yep.
We left. He came in. Closed door meeting.
We said hi. Hey, Bo, how you doing? Hi. And then we talked to his assistant a little bit. And she said she had been getting calls constantly. Her phone was. And then we went over to one of the other offices, and it was Mark Boehm, I remember, and he had a little TV on there, again with the coverage of what was happening in State College. And I remember he said to us, John, I don't know if you remember this, he was like, there's no way they're going to play this game.
Yeah, he was convinced they were not going to play, and it was nip and tuck, man, the whole time. And then of course eventually they did play the game, and there was the moment, the team prayer. Ron Brown kind of organized all of that, and it was a little bit of a healing moment. But that it was weird. It was really weird, and if you think about it, there haven't been many normal games in the Big Ten. There was that game, and then of course the next couple of years, Penn State's not really at full throttle because of the sanctions after the Sandusky stuff. And then you get, you fast forward a bit, and one of Mike Riley's last games, because we saw the writing was on the wall.
Yeah,
was 17,
And
seems like every time, and then the next time after that they played was COVID,
right?
So it seems like every time Nebraska and Penn State have played in the Big Ten era, and that includes this year, because Penn State has an interim coach,
right?
Sure.
It seems like every year Nebraska and Penn State have played in the Big Ten, one or both of the programs are going through some sort of existential turmoil, and they're not like coming in to the game in a normal sense for these two very historic winning programs who have, won a bunch of games, and they've been conference rivals, but they've just kind of been there, right? Because I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity that when Nebraska joined the league, it would have made sense. Hey, we got this Ohio State Michigan thing, but who are the other two at that time biggest brands that now the Big Ten has? Well, it's Penn State and it's Nebraska,
Right?
And they've already got a bit of a history,
Right.
To make that another big game, because no other league could boast the two games, 4 teams, top 10 wins all time, to like have this annual thing. And I think an opportunity was missed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the circumstances have just been so weird, since 2011 that, it's never come to fruition.
Right. And I don't know if Penn State feels like they had developed another clear rival in the Big Ten at that point. I don't know what their fans would say. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a portion of their fan base that's like ours that goes, our rivals are Pitt and West Virginia,
right,
and has never moved on from that, because like the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry, the Pitt Penn State rivalry had national relevance in the 70s and 80s. I mean, Pitt won national championships in the 70s.
And to be honest, maybe that was the part of the impetus towards putting them in the same division to start things out as Nebraska.
That
and
was
it made sense.
Absolutely what they were trying to do was split up the big brands.
And it made sense. I mean, Legends and Leaders never made sense, but it did make sense to try to say, hey, we got Ohio State, Michigan over here. Let's have Nebraska, Penn State over here.
Yeah. And then after that, like you were saying, of course, they played that game in State College after all the Sandusky stuff. And then the next year, I don't even hardly remember the next year's game. That would have been in 2012. Nebraska won 32-23 in Lincoln. Nebraska was 18th.
That was kind of the revenge for the 82 screw job, because remember, Penn State had a touchdown and they had the camera on the goal line. It looked like the ball had crossed the goal line, and I don't remember who slapped the ball out, but Nebraska got credit for the fumble recovery, and Penn State didn't get the touchdown. And Penn State fans thought, we got screwed on this call. And so there was a little bit of, but we remember 1980.
Right. Yeah. And John Butler, who was Penn State's defensive coordinator for that game, remembered that this week.
Yeah.
That he said, hey, wait a second, the one memory I have of that series was that game in Lincoln that we should have won, but they called that play a fumble instead of a touchdown.
And I remember Penn State had a running back, a white running back who looked like he came from the 1970s. And I had to look it up. Zach Zwinak.
Oh, boy.
He ran for 141 yards in that game.
That was pretty good defense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an eventual Big Ten Legends division champion.
Yeah, he ran for 141 in that game. And then the next year is probably the most memorable one in terms of what happened in the field, because that's when Nebraska got the last minute field goal. It was a defensive battle. It was kind of a snow game, as I recall, in that one in 2013 in State College. And Pat, let's see, what's the name's kicker?
Smith.
Pat Smith.
Yeah,
Pat Smith. Why are we talking about Pat Smith more? We don't have very many field goals. It was an overtime field goal to win the game.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
that game went into overtime. That was you talk about, that was the type of game Nebraska wouldn't win for almost a decade
Another
and a half
decade.
after that.
Yeah.
And that was Christian Hackenberg there for Penn
That's a
State.
good Penn State team, sure.
That year, and Amir Abdullah ran for about 150, but that was Ron Kellogg started that game for Nebraska.
Yeah, the only thing I remember about that was we had a Creighton game that afternoon, so I missed the whole game until overtime. I got back to the radio station and I watched the overtime. But yeah, it's and then the first Wang Nachos was 2017.
Yes, 2017. But they didn't, since that 2013 game. Nebraska has played one non-COVID game against Penn State in 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it just goes to show how poor the Big Ten scheduling models have been and are, because, if you're going to maximize the value of this conference, you want the big brands playing each other annually. And even if you're not going to work in a divisional structure, at the very I'm all for equality in your scheduling and trying to get to every stadium during a player's theoretical 4-year career. Well, you just laid it out. They've played once in a non-COVID year in 12 years. That doesn't work.
They played one game in the Big Ten in Lincoln with fans in the stadium against Penn State. One game in Lincoln.
That's just loony.
Again, if you accept the COVID year, that Zach Swinak, Nebraska game in 2012, 13 years since potentially your primary conference rival has played you in your home stadium, which is crazy. They played Michigan State in Lincoln 87 times since then, right?
Sure.
Illinois 97. I mean, isn't that wild?
Yeah, and I mean, geography plays into this some, and the structure of the Big Ten West and East, which I thought was the best structure, but they also needed to make sure that everybody saw everybody. Like, if they could have stayed in the Big Ten West East structure, where you made sure that those non-division games had some juice. And remember that we all anticipated that Penn State was entering nuclear winter after the Joe Paterno stuff, after the Jerry Sandusky stuff. So I can't imagine Nebraska was fighting very hard to get Penn State on the schedule, because they figured, well, what good's it going to do us?
Yeah, I guess so. But here's Nebraska's played Rutgers 6 times since that 2012 game between Nebraska and Penn State. Nebraska has played Maryland. I'm looking at here. Nebraska has played Maryland, probably not as many.
Times,
not as many, but still they played them 4 times.
Yeah,
4 times, including twice in Lincoln.
So this will only be the 3rd time since 2013.
Yeah, and so it just
doesn't make sense.
No, it really
neither
doesn't.
does 18-team conferences.
No, that's true.
No, so it is a shame that we feel like we have to kind of dredge this up, and it didn't create itself like it probably should have. And again, part of it, like you said, is you had the weirdness of the one. It didn't really feel like it was the weirdest football game ever. I mean, like, it's all with the Sandusky year, and then the COVID year was a weird game, which Nebraska won in that year. And so, yeah, it's kind of too bad. And hopefully maybe this is something they can get going again. It'll kind of, there's something that makes sense to it now. It'll be interesting to see who Penn State hires, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Because you got the Matt Rule connection as well. But like, this should have been one of the trophy games, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
they could have played for the $100 bill. Joe Paterno slipped into the referee's pocket.
Exactly.
Yes.
There we go. So anyway, yeah, that's a good look book. It's a good way to start the show, because there is just something about this matchup that I wish there had been more of. And then there's the weird thing too, that as we've outlined, Nebraska, since they joined the Big Ten, not only have they not played Penn State often, but when they have, they pretty much won 4-1.
Yeah. It's the one team that they've pretty well dominated in the Big Ten.
Who would, if somebody would have told you that coming into the Big Ten, Nebraska's going to handle Penn State, it'd be like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just the beginning.
Right.
Well, and even, especially if you say it in the summer of 2011 as they were joining, because that was still when Penn State was. And that when the Paterno was still there and they had a few good years, but the Penn State program, for all the worry about the nuclear winter that was going to come on with Sandusky, with the sanctions after the Sandusky issue, they've been good. Like the program's been pretty good. This is not, of the two programs, they have clearly been better than Nebraska.
Yeah.
And then they fired their coach.
Whoever got that thing turned around, pretty good coach.
Yeah.
Well,
he's got a lifetime
Man,
contract
who is
there,
that
right?
guy anyway, yeah.
It's funny. They let good be the enemy of great and said, you know what? He's not quite good enough, and made the mistake Nebraska's made at least twice.
Yeah. Well, we can talk more about that. That'll be interesting. Let's take a break right now. We're going to get into some of the sound from this week, delve into this year's game after reminiscing about the olden days.
Yeah.
6:35.
Yeah.
It'll never be over. Penn State.
Now, if it happens,
it'll never be over.
Nebraska is owed the benefit of the doubt from that, but what'll happen if it goes in this game? They'll go to review.
Yeah.
Oh. Nebraska should get a free challenge of a challenge.
Right.
They should be able to cancel review for 2
Oh,
plays.
I like
because
this
of that,
idea.
just to pay
Yes.
them back. 6:36. This is the Friday Husker Tailgate on KLIN.
When you're thinking Huskers,
Accelerates up the middle, grinds his way across the 35-yard line.
think 1499.3 KLIN. Back to the Friday Husker Tailgate. But first, your Fantasy Huskers keyword, presented by Nebraska Sign Company. From Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, good news. I mean, maybe it's not good news, but there's only one pick that is going to be given out. There was a chance we were going to do 2 picks today because there was a chance this was going to be the last live local show this week. But unfortunately for some, Nebraska basketball made sure that their game tonight is a late one and not an early one. And therefore, I've got to work this afternoon.
Wow, what jerks.
There you go.
Can't believe that this team that you've poured so much love into is going to make you work
just
tonight.
when I finally wouldn't have mind a little bit, if they just absolutely roll.
And it's K-State, right?
K-State won. Yeah, I saw that this morning. K-State beat Mississippi State pretty good, so they play K-State. So tonight, if you're wondering, that'll be an 8 o'clock tip. No, 8:30. Well, I guess it's going to depend on the end of the other game. We're going to go on the air.
Scheduled at 8:30.
Pre-game is going to start at 7:30. Yep. So a regular drive time Lincoln, and I guess I'll get on with you and John you and Josh at 5:30 again. So
nice.
There you go. So we'll have our Super Friends Roundtable live here, back here on KLIN. So only one keyword today. We'll do a keyword this afternoon too. The keyword today, I like this one from Steve. He wrote all the keywords, is incomplete. INCOMPLETE. Incomplete is the keyword. Very nicely done there, Steve. If you text in that to the Hunt Irrigation text line, you will be in the pool of people we will select from to get pick number 9. And the picks this week are pretty simple one. Total points scored. How many total points will be scored in the game between Nebraska and Penn State? The range starts at the bottom with Richard at 32. Matt has 39. You've got Amy with 44. Scott says 45. Cindy says 48. Brad and Ashland says 49. Lori says 56. And Tom and Malcolm says 62 points will be scored. Nate, what do we say the over-under was in this game,
last
roughly?
I saw was 44.5.
Yep, that's where it is.
44.5. So we are mostly above it. Mostly above on this whole thing. Now, the weather, as we said, the last check, I don't think there's been anything that's totally changed, but it looks about as good as you could hope for at a night game in State College.
Yeah, low 40s
in
dry,
November.
Not terrible wind.
Yeah, we've saw a lot of Penn State November games that have not been the greatest weather situation. I think there's a small chance maybe of some rain, but
says
again,
occasional drizzle.
Yeah, a little bit of rain in there, but nothing that it's not going to be a weather game, so to speak. So in any case, text in incomplete, and you might get that second to last pick. One more tonight at 5:30. Your chance to win that package of gift certificates from Big Ten Sports Bar and Grill, Rubadoo, and Alumni Hall. All thank you to our friends at Nebraska Sign Company. All right. What are we going to do today?
Well, plenty to talk about. You had the Idle Week. You had TJ Lateef. Let's start with what Nebraska did in the Idle Week. Of course, this is a program that kind of prides itself on how it develops its players, and some of those developed players have come up big lately. Matt Rule talked about what Nebraska does during the Idle Week to try and develop those guys.
Yeah, and this is a little different because it's a 2 bye week year. I think next year goes back to 1. So the early bye week was really about the whole team. But even right now, as I'm here, there's developmental practice going on. We do it every Thursday. It's actually, I had done it differently. It's actually something Coach Holgerson brought. Like, hey, this is how I like to do this on Thursdays, and it's been fantastic. Like, they put their pads on, and they're out there, and they're getting not just team reps, individual reps, routes on air, and then team reps. And so, we believe in that wholeheartedly. When you look at like the explosion that Emmett's made from, kind of sharing time to you think about like last year's bowl game, he was the tailback was the bowl game MVP, but it wasn't him. And it was Ramir, which we love and Emmett loved. So now where he's like this featured back, and I walk in, I have a Emmett for Heisman shirt on my desk. It's pretty cool. But that's not a function of something that happened this year. That's a function of just 3 years worth of his work and development, but also kind of the process. So when I look at some of our young players, I see what they're going to be in 2 or 3 or 4 years. The hard part is honestly, sometimes they don't see that and they panic. What should I do? But they're going to be really good. And so it just comes down to reps and practice. And that's why last year the bowl game was so important, because they haven't had that here in a long time. now we'll have bowl practice this year, and to me, it's really an opportunity to accelerate some of these players, because our goal is always that our seniors play their best football when they're here.
So it's success building success, and you think of the development of this team, and we kind of gloss over the idea that Emmett Johnson was kind of one of those late bloomers, if you will, even at a position running back, where you can see guys make a real impact as a freshman. But the staff is very intentional about how it develops its players, and I think they've paid the dividends for that.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of, first of all, if Matt Rule ever has somebody come into his office who's a player who says, "Coach, I'm not getting the time. This is taking a long time for me to get into the rotation like I hope I would. I'm not seeing the development that I thought I would." I think he'll probably point to Emmett Johnson quite often, like he just did there, and say, "Look, you take some time for a lot of people, but if you go through the process, you trust the process, this is what can happen with him." It's interesting to think about it. Have we seen that with other players during the Matt Rule era? And when I was thinking about that, the first one that comes to mind, the first couple that come to mind, are just these guys along the defensive line, because that's, I think, where it's been before, is guys exploding their senior year or at the end of their career along particularly the defensive line. I think
or a guy,
Ty Robinson is the biggest, the most clear of any of them.
He's a great example.
His senior year was different than we saw
every other year.
The rest of his career.
Well, think of a guy like Jamari Butler too. Last year he was an okay player. He was the guy on the roster. He was a real impact player last year. Think of a guy like John Bullock, who
100%. That's another great one.
You sat there and you went, "Oh, he's just a walk-on.
Yeah.
He's just roster filler. He might play some on special teams." He was all over the place last year.
Yeah.
So
and there's also guys who have been in the program a while and have been, unfortunately, they've had some injuries, but Turner Corcoran, who's been in the program for a long time, Javen Wright.
There's another guy getting by far the most out of him.
Getting the most out of him that they've ever had.
Luke Lindenmeyer.
Exactly. Yeah, Luke Lindenmeyer. So there's still room for that today. It's just, be the willingness and the patience to work through it, because, it's easier to transfer now. Yeah, it just is.
Yeah, it's too bad you're having this happen in this era, but I think there's some real evidence as we start to just go through that list, and we could probably rattle off several other guys in the same way, where by the time they had gone through the process, by the time they had gone through a year, 2 years, 3 years, when they were older, that they really had a breakout in those final years. And oddly enough, you kind of wonder, we'll get to this later, I'm sure, plenty in the show, but like, what does that mean for like a Dylan Raiola, right?
Yeah.
That's
a whole different conversation.
We think of quarterbacks.
We'll get into it.
We think of quarterbacks differently, but man, we just named tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. You probably could say, it's been a short time, but you could maybe say Sierra Wright in that same group in terms of just unquestioned development, and at some point, kind of a sort of like a parabolic situation where it's that's not the word, but you know what I mean.
Gradual, and then bang,
and then it soars.
That's what we've seen with a lot of players.
End.
It seems like under Rule. So give him and the coaching staff credit for that on a lot of players, because you probably take it for granted now, but I'm not sure that was happening. I feel like you had a lot of guys in previous years where in the final years of their career, you were like, man, remember when Luke Reimer was flying around, and he had crazy, I don't mean to pick on him, but he's a guy who was dealing with injuries. I think you could probably think of in the previous iterations of a bunch of teams. Yeah.
Even a guy like Thomas Fedoni came on late, but he had to work through a bunch of injuries. Think of a guy like Adrian Martinez.
Yeah.
Adrian Martinez's best football was his freshman year.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. And that's the difference between a bad coaching staff and a good coaching staff.
Right.
And say what you will about, some of the other stuff. This staff can develop players. It's pretty clear. And some of that is the ancillary stuff as far as strength and conditioning, nutrition, recovery, all of that. But they certainly can sell to players. Look, you come here and you stay here, you're going to get better here. And
I think so too.
And that's a pretty good selling point for somebody who's going, okay, I'm good now, but I need to get better if I'm going to have a career.
Yeah. All right, what else you got?
Well, of course, a lot of discussion has and will center around the quarterback TJ Lateef. He had his first start at UCLA, had his first full game running the offense, and then had a week to build from it. So what was he able to do with it?
When you're the two, you watch the other guy do some things, and then you kind of go out there and you can do them. When you're the one, you're the first. You have to execute. You have to go out there and you have to produce, and everyone's watching you and counting on you. So, I think the one main thing I'll always say is I think since the day TJ's gotten here, he's done a good job of, learning, listening, being coachable, and so what he did last 2 games ago, he'll do this week as a product of all of that. But yeah, certainly another week just of hearing play calls, being the first guy up. I think it certainly has helped him.
So yeah, I mean, it's the fortunate part of being able to look at a game and you have a whole week to work on it, to tweak, to improve from there while you are running the offense instead of, okay, now we've got to turn the page and get ready for Penn State. You can work on you last week and adjust from there.
If you're put yourself in the shoes of Penn State's defensive coordinator, what are you concerned about? What you saw one game, like, are you worried about TJ? I mean, obviously you're thinking about Emmett Johnson, right, on the offense, but what are you preparing for if you're preparing for TJ Lateef right now? If you're a Penn State fan, are you wishing Dylan Raiola was playing, right? I wonder what people think about that.
I mean, you probably are when you look at what Penn State has been like against mobile quarterbacks this year. Nico had the huge game against them that sparked the upset and kind of helped bring to an end the James Franklin era. Gronowski at Iowa had the huge run at the end, set up Iowa for the game-winning score. So certainly, TJ is going to be in that mode. To me, with Penn State, it's going to be about how they tackle. This team has missed a lot of tackles this year. It's not coincidental that maybe their best performance of the year against a power opponent was last week against Michigan State, and they didn't miss any tackles. But, you're going to be playing a running back in Emmett Johnson, who has been very good at being slippery and avoiding big hits. And so he's obviously the number one focus, but just that threat. And again, I don't expect TJ to be a huge part of the running game, but it's the thought of it. It's the threat of it that is going to be mindful, or that's what Penn State's got to be mindful of this week. And then if you're Nebraska and you're Dana Holgorsen, what are you building off of? Because they didn't put TJ, UCLA did not put TJ Lateef in any uncomfortable situations. Nebraska always seemed to be ahead of the chains. Nebraska always seemed to be in the right play calls. They were very efficient. Penn State has to do things to make TJ uncomfortable, and I think they will. They'll do it a lot better than UCLA certainly did. So then how does Dana Holgorsen then counter that? Okay, now we're in a situation where it's second and long or third and long. How are we going to cope? Because if you look at it, TJ completed, the 13 out of 15 or 14 out of 16. I don't remember the exact number. But they were all pinpoint throws, nothing very deep down the field, very, very short depth of target. Penn State's got to make TJ Lateef throw it down the field. Because if they're able to just do what they did 2 weeks ago, I don't think Nebraska will be able to. They'll have to be a little bit more diverse in terms of how they're able to move the ball. But yeah, those are the things I think, I look at it when Nebraska's got the football.
Yeah, it's going to be a very crowded box. I mean, they will dare TJ Lateef to throw it over their heads because you want to take the short timing patterns away. This Penn State team does have a decent pass rush. They have a decent pass rusher in Dennis Sutton. So take away that first read and make it tough for him to escape. So I imagine they're going to be really close to the line of scrimmage, and the short stuff is going to be far less available in this game than it was out in Los Angeles.
Maybe this is the day Nebraska finally completes some bombs. It feels like it hasn't. What's the most notable deep completed pass you can think of this year? I mean,
yeah, it's been
isn't that
thin
crazy?
supply.
There's very few of them
for quarterbacks that have a high completion percentage.
Right. I mean, there was Latif had a bomb against Houston Christian, but I mean, in the non-Houston Christian games, there haven't been any by either quarterback.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And if you look at the analytics, Nebraska's depth of target is one of the lowest in the country.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of dink and dunk.
All right, give me one more, Nate, here in the last couple of minutes.
So one thing we underrate, and we expect a more diverse defensive game plan, but Justin Evans, a veteran up there, and maybe he was having trouble with this at the beginning of the year, but his importance in making sure that the line is in the proper protection for TJ.
Yeah, obviously with Donovan being the center, takes great pride in those guys making protection points and adjustments and things like that. The quarterback obviously can always trump those, but Justin has really grown in those areas. He did a nice job at guard. He's naturally a center. He's aggressive. He's physical, but he's really, really smart. And we're a high volume, pro style offense, right? So he has to do a lot of different things. It'll certainly help us going into this game, especially with having poise and the noise. You can't have three linemen on one page and two on the other. So Justin's a great anchor in there that the guys respect, and he'll make sure that we have five guys working as one.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge because this game gets bad for Nebraska if they're not able to protect TJ, whatever they ask him to do. And Penn State's going to cause some trouble in that way.
All right. We'll take a break right now. We're going to come back. We do have our helmet sticker segment. That wasn't a game, obviously. I am going to take a look back, though, at the best and the worst picks that we made this year in our helmet sticker fantasy draft. We'll do that. The other thing we're going to do is take a little look. It's a bit early for this, but we have some time to do it. Take a look at which of the playmakers this year could, not necessarily will, but could be on Nebraska's roster next year and what that could mean. 6:57 on KLIN.
Peacocks, not your billing statement. Every Husker game is free on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Raiola takes a snap, fade route, back run to the end zone. Touchdown, Huskers! Isaiah Hunter with a Husker touchdown.
Who do you think you're fooling? Nobody's thinking about their job the day before a Husker game.
Backpedals the throw, blitz picked up. Harris went out, keep right sideline, 50-50 ball, it's picked off! The black shirts with the dagger, Malcolm Hartzog with a giant pick. Sails the night for the Big Red. Drifts back to throw, dumps it to an underneath crosser. Goody made the catch, got popped. Ball's loose, but they say incomplete.
This is the Friday Husker Tailgate with Jack Mitchell, Nate Rohr, John Bishop, and Kevin Suits on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, welcome back. Hour 2 of the Friday Husker Tailgate. Jack Mitchell, Nate Rohr, John Bishop, Kenny Larrabee running our video today. You can watch us at the KLIN YouTube page or the KLIN Twitter page or my Twitter page if you would like to go there and see our smiling faces and all the great work that Kenny does with that video broadcast. So hello to everyone out there in video land who is watching right now. Appreciate you joining us. No game last week, and so normally we do helmet stickers here, and since we're gonna have a little bit of a weird show. A little bit of a weird show. We're on Wednesday next week. Bishop is going to be in Vegas. We'll still give out the helmet stickers after next week's game and have some final standings, but since it was the three of us who kind of did this thing at the beginning, we made our picks in terms of predicting what the helmet sticker totals would look like at the beginning of the year. I thought this might be a good time to look back on how things differed from what we thought at the beginning of the year to what actually happened at the beginning of the year in terms of who was making plays. Now, first thing I say, while there's we had some misses, it's nothing compared to last year. Do you guys remember when we did this last year?
It was bad.
We had we had no idea last year who the players on the team making plays were going to be. And we had a couple of those moments where we had misses. What we really didn't have misses on, though, is guys who performed really well that we just didn't think of this year. Last year, it was more of the guys we thought were going to be doing something, just a lot of them just didn't last year.
Last year's wide receivers.
Yeah, there you go. I think about that whole thing last year and where we were, where we gave out those helmet stickers, and it was just crazy. This year it was more kind of what we thought. But let's go through these here. And our draft, we'll go player through us one by one and see how everyone did. Nate, your first pick overall seemed to make a lot of sense.
Yep.
It was Dylan Raiola, very first pick overall. He ended up, after all of that, and of course he had the injury that took him out at the end of the year. He ended up with 6 helmet stickers during the course of the year.
Yeah, I thought I'd
so
be
6 times.
higher.
So if you give away 3 per game, right? And we've been through 10 games, so 90 helmet stickers total.
Yes.
And he got 6 of them throughout the course of the year. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Huh.
It is. And some of it too, sometimes you can be a victim of your position or your own success.
Yeah.
That sometimes you're like, it's such an obvious pick that you don't go with it. But when you think about it, and I would guess that I'm trying to remember where the game where he was the slam dunk, maybe Michigan,
Maryland. Maybe.
Nah, and even that he was kind of hit or miss until that
he had
last
the pick
drive.
six,
Yeah.
had the most turnovers he had in a game. But there wasn't that huge moment where he took over the game, and it which can be good. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Certainly they had a winning record with him at quarterback, but the early season games, Cincinnati, they won that game, but offensively they were on the struggle bus. Then the next 2 games,
whatever,
it was what it was. Then you get to Michigan, which was probably his best game, but then he took a bunch of sacks. Michigan State, 2 very clunky quarters. And you go from there, and there just wasn't there wasn't a lot of moments this year for him where it was like, Dylan, go win us a football game. I suppose the end of the
Maryland game, end of Northwestern.
End of Northwestern.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were those moments, but it wasn't like a full game, right? Where it was just like clear that without this dude, Nebraska wins. And I say that full well knowing that a couple weeks ago here on this show, I made the statement that as soon as Dylan went down against USC, I knew Nebraska's in some big trouble here. Even though they're up 14-6, I thought, ooh, this is not gonna end well because you lost him. So some of it's a little bit kind of a victim of how the schedule broke out and how the team ended up playing. But some of it too is while the numbers definitely look good or better, maybe is a better word, better than last year, it's not like wow numbers.
Yeah. The second pick, Nate, that you made. Well, actually, let's just go in order of the picks. We'll go. My first pick overall was Ja'Cory Barney. He ended up right now, at least, he's in fourth place overall at helmet stickers with 7. So he ended up having more than Raiola. Although at one point he looked like he was on track to lead the entire team in them, right? I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, it's just sort of the expectations for him and his ability to change the offense and be a huge factor on the offense. It's a weird deal. Like
kind of
if you had asked me after the
Michigan as Dylan,
if you had asked me after the Michigan game, I would have said, man, this guy is going to be the biggest issue for anyone on this offense. I thought that truly after the Michigan game. And since then, I mean, I don't know. You just have not, you thought you were going to, kind of these highlight plays from him throughout the course of the year. And he had the touchdown last week against UCLA for sure. But they never used him like I thought they would, right? It never happened during this whole year.
Guess how many receiving yards he has in the last 5 games?
Oh man,
it's probably under 100.
120.
98.
55.
Good Lord.
Are you kidding?
I'm looking at his game log right here. 16 against Maryland, 1 against Minnesota, 13 Northwestern, 6 USC, 19 last week.
And coming off of that Michigan game,
he was roughly in the 350s the first 5 games.
Yeah,
including a couple of 100-yard games.
Particularly the Michigan game, he had one was the Hail Mary, but he had another touchdown.
Yeah,
that
6 for 120.
I mean, that was great. I think I had a little tongue in cheek. I had a tweet at halftime of that game where I said Ja'Cory Barney for Heisman, right? Like, that was the mood. That was my mood at that point.
Yeah.
What? I mean,
it's been tough, especially as the offense has moved toward Emmett Johnson. It's seemingly moved away from Ja'Cory Barney Jr. It feels like a lot of the touches that Emmett is getting is at the expense of Ja'Cory Barney Jr. and which is interesting because you feel like they're different players. Like Emmett Johnson, solid between the tackles, but not explosive. Whereas when you get Ja'Cory Barney in space, magic happens.
Yeah.
And so you feel like you could do some more stuff outside to try and open things up a little bit in the center for Emmett Johnson.
Yeah,
but it's just not happened. And, you even think of when Latif came into the game against USC, what was the one play they missed? It was that screen that they had the screen called and Latif fumbles the snap,
but it
was called for Ja'Cory Barney. And they say that would have been a walk-in touchdown. So it's just stuff like that.
Yeah. I like it has been, and I don't even necessarily mean this. I'm not saying it's on Barney. I don't know who it's on exactly, but it's been a really disappointing second half for him.
Yes.
Of this year.
Yes. I mean, this is the guy who is second on the team in catches right now. And I mean, I literally just looked that up because it was like, oh, interesting. But yeah, he's second on the team in receptions right now behind Hunter, but 55 yards in the last 5 games. Man. For a guy who is electric with the ball in his hands. It's almost like we've resigned to the fact of, well, he'll do something on special teams. Let's just wait for that.
That's true.
Right. And, the last couple of games, there really hasn't been a big return. I know he had the punt return that was called back. It was at Northwestern. when he had the punt return called back, or what game was that?
I think that might be right. Is that
But-
right? Michigan State. No,
But yeah, it's
anyway.
almost like we've resigned ourselves to, well, he'll just do something on special teams.
Yeah.
But
And I thought for sure he'd have a
for
punt he'd take
him
him
not
back.
to touch the ball more is criminal.
Because he seems like he's the antidote to pressure on the quarterback, to
Yes.
focusing on the run too.
Yeah, just
Like
get it out to him, out on the edge,
Yeah.
swing it out to him. And again, it has bothered me some this year that they've not been more creative in how they've used him. I mean, put him in the backfield,
Yeah.
run jet sweeps with him,
Jet sweeps. Yeah.
get him the damn ball.
I'm still surprised. That's one of the biggest surprises for me during the
Yeah.
year. Third, first overall pick. Well, John left a
John
window for
wins.
him, and he picked with the third overall pick, the potential Doak Walker winner, Emmett Johnson.
Yeah.
If you
Walking
will,
on
but
in that door. Hello.
18, far and away, the helmet sticker leader, doubling up anyone else on this whole thing.
And
But
the ironic thing is, I was of this group probably because I had heard a lot of the talk. Oh, Emmett, the Emmett Hive, and I was like, all right, come on, people, slow down. He'll be the starting running back. He'll be good, but I was probably the least bullish coming into the season on the potential of Emmett Johnson. He ends up falling into my lap, and
yeah.
You win the helmet sticker derby.
Yes.
Then your next pick, we snaked around, and you made maybe the pick of the draft with your next one, which I did not quite get at the time. You
Yeah.
took Javen Wright second. You saw something there, and you were right on that.
You want
one.
the truth on this?
He had 8, by the way.
You want the truth on this?
I
It
can't
wasn't
handle
so. It wasn't so much what I thought he was going to do, but it was that week where, and this is before the House Rules podcast started. But when Rule would do those long form interviews and they'd put them up on social media, the one that week was the one with him and Javen Wright.
Oh yeah.
And I watched it. It was one of the ones I did watch, and I was like, man, they really like this kid, and they're, they really want good things to happen for him. And so when I made the pick, I wanted to go defense, but then I was trying to figure out, well, who do I really want on defense? Do I want someone on the defensive line? I think the defensive line, I'm not sure if I didn't think like a Williams Winery,
Just maybe wouldn't get
Deshaun
numbers.
McCullough
Yeah.
would get big numbers. I thought they could be better picks later. And so the name that came to my head was Javen Wright.
Yeah.
And so yet another one falls into my lap.
My next pick was in some ways maybe too good. My next pick was Sierra Wright,
Yeah.
who I think you probably fairly easily argue had the best season on the entire defense. The problem was you forgot he was playing most of the time.
No stats.
I have never seen anything like this, and I'm sure it existed for great cornerbacks that
Sure.
have been on other teams. Think of your favorite 5 Sierra Wright's plays of the year this
Right.
year. You don't have them.
No,
Because all it was covering a guy who didn't get the ball thrown to him.
he
Who
hasn't
wasn't
had
on
the
camera.
chance.
It's unbelievable. The season he is having. I was like, oh, USC, then that's are going to test him. It's his old team. Nope, same thing.
Nope.
They threw on him once, I think. You don't see the guy. They don't. I
try
wish there
him.
was some kind of a stat, and maybe there is an analytic, but I would love to see it if there was times thrown on or some kind of a comparative metric, because
Right.
he's never, ever the guy they throw to.
No. He's
It's
got the most pass
unbelievable.
breakups on the team, but he has, I'm using air quotes, only 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember one was against Northwestern. I actually
Yes.
remember that. That's probably
Yes.
the most, and it was a great play.
Right.
Didn't interfere.
And
Made the play.
what was your reaction in the moment? What are those idiots doing? Why
Yeah,
are they throwing it towards him?
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't have an interception, right?
No.
Nope, not an no interceptions this year.
Sierra Wright
He's got like 13 tackles this year.
He has 20 tackles,
20.
13 assisted. He does have a tackle for loss. He's credited with a half a sack, and 5 passes broken up. And those are his stats this year.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
it.
with him
The
moving to
opposite
nickel.
Of filling up the stat sheet.
By comparison, last year he had 2 picks, including the pick 6 against SC. Had a tackle for loss. Had 39 tackles.
Yeah.
And had 6 passes broken up. But also he had a kick block.
Yep.
He had a quarterback hurry.
Yep. Well, they blitzed him for the first time all year against UCLA this year. I think they felt bad for him. They're like, do you want to do something other than just cover?
No, you're exactly right. It's a great pick, and for all intent and purpose, he is the defensive MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no stats.
Right.
There's no number to quantify how good he's been.
Nate, your second pick was Marquise Watson-Trent. He ended up with only 3. I believe one of them I gave to him for one play, which was a play against Houston Christian when he did kind of just ate the quarterback. But of all of the transfers that came in and the expectations for this year, he's maybe the only one, I would say.
That's
maybe
been a disappointment.
we can talk about Dane Key in a second, but that didn't measure quite up. And I don't think he had a bad season, but you expected gaudy tackle numbers from him, I think.
I mean,
you expected him to be everywhere based on his career.
I mean, Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, 100 tackle guy. I mean, you figured that he would be a factor. And it feels like Javen Wright has kind of done what I expected anyway, Marquez Watson-Trent to do.
That's a good point. That's more what I thought he would look like. Yeah. And then your next one, and we snaked back around, so you got to pick again. And there's Dane Key, who got 1 helmet sticker this year. What if I had told you that at the beginning of the year? Because he was, it's just, I don't even know what to say about it, right?
Well, again, I think part of it was a victim of hype. And we'll get to this in a moment when we get to my next pick. But all the talk in the offseason about the receivers had to do with Barney and Key.
Mm-hmm.
And while Key, had a touchdown in each of the first 3 games, since then, he's been shut out twice of just catches, period. And only 2 touchdowns in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he, it's not like he's been bad. It's not like he's been a bust, but think of some of the missed opportunities. There was the overthrow against Minnesota. If that's not overthrown, game's totally different.
Yeah.
I think there's one other play where they had an opportunity to hit him and did not, but it's one of those deals where, again, a little bit of the hype preseason, and as Dana Holgerson has said, we got a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Diversity to me is the number of options that we have, not so much, the plays that we call or,
Right, but they didn't feed 2 of them.
That's true.
At least 2 of them.
I mean, he had 6 catches in the first game. He has only had 4 catches twice in a game since then. And then that's it.
And it's oh my gosh, like I'm looking at his numbers. He had 47 catches last year at Kentucky.
Right.
In the SEC.
He's got 28 this year.
And the big knock was, he only had 2 touchdowns, but he had so many yards per catch. I mean, he had 4 different games at Kentucky last year where he averaged over 20 yards a catch. This year, he's got the Houston Christian game where he was over 20, but
he's going to have to up the pace to beat his freshman year at Kentucky in terms of stats.
Yeah.
This will be by far his lowest production year in terms of receptions. Now it's not again, it's not one though, kind of like Jacory where you don't feel that much like it's completely on him.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, they haven't gotten the ball downfield very much.
Right. It's that average depth of target.
Yeah. And so that's hurt Jacory's numbers. That's hurt Key's numbers. You also feel like Key is, with all the weapons and all the people you have to cover, like Key was the focus of the coverage early on, and that's opened some things up. And now, it's one of those deals where they keep a guy quiet early and he kind of fades from the quarterback's view.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'd be nice to see him have him and or Jacory have some big games in these next 2. Next pick was me. I took Archie Wilson. You guys made fun of me. I did get 4 helmet stickers for it. He's pretty much been as advertised, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much been as advertised.
I think the only thing that's really been surprising is, we haven't seen the fake punt yet
Ooh.
We have not seen it yet.
There's no way they're not using that before the end of the season, by the way. Yeah,
Well,
I'd say
Osborne always used to save the trick plays for Oklahoma, so
there's an 80%. I will give an 80% chance of a fake punt in one of the next 2 games. And if not, if it
I don't know
doesn't
if
happen,
Iowa's the team you want to run it
That's
against
true.
because they're usually pretty good on special teams.
right. Although they've got a returner that you don't want to kick to anyway.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
it might be better
But
to
if
fake
it
the punt.
doesn't happen, I will bump that up to 95% for the bowl game. For the chances of that happening.
Nebraska punting from their own 2-yard line. It's a fake.
My next pick was the value pick of the entire draft. I got an Isaiah Hunter with my 3rd overall pick. And, just what we said about the other 2, boy, he came in under the radar compared to Dane Key as a transfer. Oh, was it John? Oh, yeah, it was John. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
I was trying to
come on, give credit to the champ.
Stolen draft valor there.
But, that he was the missing man. During the offseason, they kept talking about Key and Barney. And I was like, well, didn't they also get this Isaiah Hunter kid? And didn't they like him too? And, didn't he show up a little bit last year for Cal? I mean, what about this guy? And, he's been really, really good this year. As far as from start to finish, where it feels like, and I know there was the drop against Minnesota, which was a crippler, but, he's been the leading receiver. He's been the leading touchdown guy this year. And he's been the most consistent, where it seems like there's always something for him. The big breakout, the screen passes against Michigan State and Maryland. He's been a great weapon.
They've run that play 100 times since it worked against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
They will run it twice a game.
and it usually works very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They run
It's
it
the
a
new
lot.
diamond formation of the
Exactly.
2020s.
All right, then your next pick, though, John, not as good. Marcus Buford.
Oh, wow. You're going to shame me now?
Wow.
After those 3 excellent picks to
And
begin?
I attribute that, honestly, that run by I can't remember which of the Michigan running backs it was, their first long touchdown. I think it was
Justice
Haynes. I think it was Haynes on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
And Buford he wasn't in the right place.
Yes.
And you saw Rex Guthrie in after that a little bit. And
Haven't seen him since.
you've seen a ton of Rex Guthrie since.
Right. And Rex is better against the run, and they can frankly afford to give up some pass coverage to be at least better against the run. And so Buford's just kind of fallen off the map.
So he has none. And then my next pick had none too. Here's one of the surprises. Heinrich Harburg, 0 helmet stickers this year. I don't know. I thought they were going to find a way to work what he can do more into the offense. And they tried. There was some trying, but
sure. We saw the wild Heine. We saw him, get behind center in the Heine push.
Against Michigan,
in the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, what other game did he have? He had a touchdown too. Against Maryland.
Touchdown. He had a touchdown catch, wasn't it, against Michigan? The last touchdown.
Yeah, he ran it in against Michigan. I guess he had a big catch. It wasn't a touchdown against Maryland too.
Yeah.
He had one, but he just wasn't super involved generally in the offense.
Right. It's felt like he's been very much, he's never gotten into the typical flow of the offense, in part because Lindenmeyer's had such a good year.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's doing great work in terms of blocking, but to get a helmet sticker, you usually have to stat.
Right.
So he's not scored, they've not used him, even as bad as they've been in short yardage situations. They've not used him a whole lot. And when they've used him, it's been hit or miss.
I'm going to put your next 2 picks together, Nate, because they were the defensive transfers that came in, Nwaneri and McCullough, who I both think probably outperformed maybe what you thought their role was going to be this year. Now, Nwaneri ended up with 1, McCullough with 2. They were a major part of the defense. They both were, although wasn't consistent enough for them for us to look at them with helmet stickers with.
And the development of the pass rush has been a slow.
That's where they had to
burn.
make their hay.
And exactly. And so it's kind of similar to Sierra Wright. It's hard to accumulate stats unless you're making splash plays.
Right.
But they have, I think they have played well though this year.
Right.
And I think Nebraska to a degree, and seeing, we believe McCullough will be back this week. Seeing him back, it will be interesting to see how much it helps that defense.
Then then maybe the surprise of the year for me, to be honest, I got another 0. I had 2 zeros in a row. My next pick was Riley Van Poppel.
He's been a disappointment,
shocked.
Flat out.
Man, and we had just talked about how consistently on the defensive line these players had developed, and I just assumed he would follow the path of Nash, right, of Ty Robinson,
Keona
Jamari
Davis
Butler.
Yeah.
I thought he would, and I don't know what happened. His first 2 years, he was more kind of visible, even in that redshirt year. And I know he's been in there, and that's probably shortchanging him a bit, but I expected him to be potentially the best player on the defense.
Right. And some of that may be being able to do, think about it in the baseball context. It's one thing to be the smoke snorting reliever out of the bullpen where you just have to come in for an inning. It's another to be the starter that has to sustain it over 6.
Right.
A higher snap count, just more pressure, more on him. But it started week 1 where he wasn't even an or on the depth chart at nose tackle.
John then picked Uncle Don's boys, the offensive line. They got 2. I've talked obviously a lot about them.
Yeah.
Then when we did the additional pick add-on in the middle of the season, you added Deshaun Singleton. He ended up having 2. He's had a solid season.
Yeah, he's been solid.
Fair to say. I added Luke Lindenmeyer. Again, during the year, Lindenmeyer, the end of the year has not been as significant for him as I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, the second half, for whatever reason. And then Nate, you had added on Vincent Shavers. Kind of the same thing in some ways, a little bit.
Played okay, but not
been solid.
Enough.
Yeah, been solid. So there you go. So the standings as we go into the final week: Emmett Johnson 18, Isaiah Hunter 9, Javen Wright 8, Ja'Cory Barney 7, Riola 6, Sierra Wright 5, and Archie Wilson 4. That's your leaderboard there. So there you go. All right, we'll take a break. We're going to count down the 5 things you're going to be talking about this Husker weekend next on the Friday Husker Tailgate on KLIN.
Always free with no subscription required. Over the air, online, and through the app. Lincoln's Husker Radio is 1499.3 K. Topics to get you going for game day. It's a special Friday Husker Tailgate edition of the Morning Drive, presented by Stonebridge Insurance and Wealth Management on Lincoln's Husker 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, welcome back. 7:38. It's time to count down the 5 things you're going to be talking about this Husker weekend. We do it every day on the regular LNK today, and we just put a Husker skin on it during the Friday Husker Tailgate. So let's get this thing started.
Number 5.
Number 5. Well, one thing that I haven't heard a ton, I haven't been following very closely, is the Penn State coaching search, which we've been in this situation at Penn State where you got a game coming up, but really what's everyone talking about all week is the coaching search. And I'm going to guess there's quite a bit of that happening with the Penn State fan base right now. I did see this report that came out last night from 100.9 FM, The Tide, the home of Alabama sports. Penn State reporter John Sauber published a head coach hot board for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And he had a lot of names that were on there that you've heard before: Mike Elko, Eli Drinkwitz, James Madison coach Bob Chesney. But his number 2 on his hot board, likeliness of coming to Penn State, this is someone who covers the team, is now Kalen DeBoer.
Huh.
What?
I think this is wish casting. I think this is wish casting because when you look at the board, and we did this yesterday, but when you look at the odds board, Eli Drinkwitz is the 2-1 favorite. And then was it Brent Key? And then the coach at James Madison.
James Madison was on that list too,
right.
I said,
It feels very underwhelming. And let's face it,
Bob Chesney.
Penn State, you just fired James Franklin, who had done nothing but win you 10 games and had you in the semifinals last year. Any of those coaches that we just mentioned would be a step back.
Yep.
A perceptive step back in terms of, wait, you fired this guy so you could hire this guy? And DeBoer at least brings you the street cred of he played for the national title a couple of years ago. The street cred of, well, he's coached at Alabama, and we'd be stealing a coach from Alabama. This report feels to me like it's wish casting. Like we're putting his name out there because it's because there's no way that Penn State is just going to go out and hire a guy from the G5 to replace a guy that had done nothing but win 10 games a year for us in James Franklin.
The strange part, though, is it's the Alabama people putting it out there, or somebody who reports on Alabama in a year where Alabama's been pretty good. I mean, after last year, I might have bought it where he just said, you know what, this doesn't work.
And his comment, the reporter's comment, and he writes for the Center Times Daily. His name's John Sauber. He said it became a whole lot more likely after the loss to Oklahoma, is what he said.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
I don't know. I don't believe it either.
I think it's wish casting. It's wish casting.
You said Center Times Daily is where this hot board came from.
It's from the reporter.
Yeah,
Penn State beat guy.
Yeah, this
that's
is a Penn
State beat guy, even though it's on the Alabama site.
He was. Sorry, I should have clarified that. It was Alabama had this. That's where I found it, but it was a report, or it was the hot board written by the Center Times Daily.
Yeah, I just can't see it with Kalen DeBoer. Oklahoma loss or not. I mean, and look, this is the danger, and God knows we've lived it twice. When you fire a coach that's 9 wins every single year, or all but 1 year, good luck finding somebody better. And unless you know something, you probably shouldn't make that move.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, Kalen DeBoer it's been up and down for him this year. There's been ups, there's been downs,
right,
for sure. But he's got an incredibly short leash there at Alabama,
certainly.
And I don't know what all the contractual stuff looks like with that, but there's a part of me that could see he got down there to the South and he's like, yeah, this is not.
Well, yeah,
I'm not a fit down here, right?
Right, and there's some rumors that Jed Fish, his successor at Washington. Is feeling that and is looking at UCLA, which is a lesser job.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe it's Drinkwitz. Maybe that is. It'll be regardless. The coaching search, I kind of hadn't heard a whole lot on it, and so I was kind of curious.
It's been very, very quiet
right now.
Yeah,
where it stood right now, where Pat Kraft is going for. And I don't know what would any of those guys you mentioned. I wonder what the reaction to any of those would be. Would Drinkwitz be exciting to Penn State fans?
No.
I don't think exciting. I think
No.
they would go, yeah, okay, we'll see.
No.
But,
Who
you
else
know,
did you mention
Well, there's
on that
Brent
odds?
Key of
Would Brent Key exciting?
Georgia Tech,
No.
not
Georgia
really.
Tech. No.
No.
Again, everybody on that.
I'm not saying
on
they'd
their
be bad
big board-
hires. I'm just saying I know how these fan bases react to these things.
Exactly. It would now DeBoer at least would be somewhat exciting, but most of that would be, oh, look, we stole Alabama's coach. Look at us.
Right.
That's where the excitement would come from.
Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Number 4.
Well, we did have the news. We haven't talked about it this week that Dayton Raiola has decommitted from Nebraska. Now that a few days have passed on this whole thing, John, I'm curious. Is there everybody's looking at it and saying, what does it mean? Right. That's what the whole thing is. And I don't think any of us know for sure. But now that a few days have passed, what's your read on exactly what's going on here?
Well, certainly. I mean, I think you would be sticking your head in the sand if you didn't think at least there's some kind of connection, as close as this family has been, and as much as they work together, and just kind of the history of how everything is operated. Can it be a sign? Absolutely. Now, at the same time, you can also acknowledge that another truth exists, and that is, it appears in the moment there's a logjam. Let's pretend that Dylan is still a 3-year player at Nebraska. Well, next year, still have another year. You've got Trey Taylor coming in, and he's got higher accolades than Dayton.
Sure.
Dayton is, quote, only a 3-star. And a lot of people have pulled off of his recruitment simply because he committed to Nebraska so long ago, and folks just assumed, oh,
We're not
all
gonna
right,
get him.
the Raiolas, they're committed to Nebraska now. So why even try? The curiosity is in the fact that Matt Rule was just down there last week during the Idle Week, and it had been reported that Dayton, because he has the ability to enroll early and sign early, could participate in the bowl practices.
Yes.
And that and as much has been said that, he'll be ready to go for the bowl practices.
So we would have been here in 2 weeks.
He would have been here in 2 weeks. He would have been able to start joining the team and
Or whenever
already
his high
start
school
working
season
out.
ends, I guess. But yeah.
And it makes me think that something has been in the works as to why you would decommit now, 2 weeks out before signing day. Because if you're still going to intend to enroll early, well, you got to get that ball rolling. So it would not surprise me if there's already something out there for him, another offer from another school that just has not been made public yet.
That's the thing. It's not like he's going to be taking visits somewhere else.
No,
I don't
he-
think,
he
right?
Doesn't really have time.
No.
I mean, I assume Dominic would have the money to where he could throw him on a plane and he can go look
Quietly get there
around
somewhere,
and
yeah.
an unofficial visit.
Somebody
but,
would notice it, though. Yeah.
but yeah, it's, you really only have 2 weeks to go on campuses.
Yeah. And it's
For a game
and some of these
anyway.
teams might not even have a home game, right?
Right.
It's whoever it is. Now, the timeline, and John, you alluded to this, is going to be really interesting because this whole thing is going to resolve itself oddly quickly.
Very quickly.
In some ways, because number one, as you said, yeah, he was the plan, we believe, was for him to be here in a few weeks for bowl practices starting up. And again, that would, I assume the first bowl practice is going to be in about 2.5 weeks, right? And so
at least a week or so into
Yeah.
December.
it'll be a little while, but not a real long time from now. Number two is signing day is coming up, as you mentioned,
Right.
and that's very soon. When we find out what Dayton Raiola does, assuming you're right, and I have no reason to believe you're not, that he would go enroll someplace early and do the same thing, he's going to sign somewhere at that point, right?
You would
And-
assume.
And whether he enrolls early or not, we're going to know where he's going. And so you're going to have this weird scenario where you're getting ready for the bowl game. We know where Dayton Raiola is going, and all of a sudden everyone is like, "Oh, is Dylan going there?" Right? Or is he going somewhere else? But you will have a place
Sure.
that Dayton Raiola is going, whether it's Arizona State or Miami or what. I have no idea what it is,
Right.
but I know what has been thrown around for Dylan.
Yeah, and if he goes to a place that seems likely for Dylan, then you go,
exactly,
this is happening.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then now the third thing of it is because they've changed the transfer portal periods. If you're Dylan Raiola, if you are going to transfer, you have one chance to do it, and it's in January.
Correct.
While you're
First
still
2 weeks of
rehabbing.
January.
While you're still rehabbing from a broken leg. There's no spring practice. There's no coming out like putting them through the spring and seeing who's ahead after that.
Yeah.
There's none of the, and I don't know what his participation is or would have been in the spring anyway, but you are going to know 2 months from now, we're going to know how this ends.
Yeah, this will not be
before spring
thankfully,
practice.
this won't be a thing that, lingers. At least it shouldn't, because of the timing of everything, though the calendar is still the calendar and it's got its issues. But you're right. A lot of this stuff's going to play out very, very quickly. There is one other possibility out there, and that has been proffered, and that is, what if Nebraska moved on from Dayton?
Right.
That is also a possibility.
Of course it is. Yeah. Of course it is. And normally, were his name not Raiola, that wouldn't be in some ways all that surprising.
Yeah, if it's Bob Smith, it's a whole different ballgame.
Because if you've got, let's say you've got two guys and they're not brothers, right? You're like, well, we got these two guys here, man.
Yep.
And then we got another one coming in. We didn't know, this is our future for the next several years.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to tell you that here. You may want to think about something else. All of that is exactly what we'd be talking about were their names not the same. Raiola. So that's, I think, why people think it's unlikely. But anyway, moving on.
Number 2.
Interesting thing on this, and we'll get into in the next segment kind of who Penn State has been on the field during the course of the year. But and John, I think you've gotten a good sense of this too. You've talked to some Penn State people this year. What is your sense of kind of where this team's state of mind is? Because after Franklin gets fired, they go and they lose again, right? They lose to Iowa. I'm trying to remember all the games that they lost.
They lost 6 in a row.
They lost. Yeah. I mean, they lost obviously to UCLA and Northwestern, which precipitated the firing. Lost to Iowa.
Ohio State.
Lost to Ohio State. But on the other hand, they were within. They were in the game late against Ohio State. It didn't end up looking close into the fourth quarter. Obviously, they nearly beat Indiana. Mm-hmm. Should have arguably beat Indiana. What's your sense? I mean, it's hard when you watch the Indiana game. Obviously, they hadn't mailed the season in, but I did wonder when they went to Michigan State after that loss, after the deflating Indiana loss that could have made the moment, if now you're ready to move on. And they won against Michigan State. What's your sense on sort of their mental state?
I have to assume that they're going to come ready to go as you can expect, because I have been waiting for this team to throw in the towel for weeks. And yet they haven't. And we talked to Steve Jones, their voice on the radio yesterday, and he said a lot of that credit goes to Terry Smith and how, he has really kept this team together. And, Terry's been a longtime Penn State guy and been very loyal. The interesting thing about this, though, is that James Franklin is now a job, and the rumors are that he's going to come after some of his old staff, and would Terry Smith be one of them?
Wow.
So, there is that possibility, but I think right now, just based on what we have seen, the gutty performance against Ohio State, the gutty performance against Indiana, beating up on Michigan State last week, that this Penn State team is going to come in here ready to go and play out their senior day and, finish strong with one more, good home game and then go from there. But then there's a little bit of me that still thinks, Dennis Sutton. Sutton, thank you. This is a guy who's got good pro prospects. What are his benefits to continuing to? He's got the tape that NFL scouts are going to look at. It's already out there. Mm-hmm. What more does he need, right? So there's still a little tiny part of me that thinks that at some point Penn State's going to say, why do we care?
Yeah.
But what they've done on the field the last month tells me the opposite, that they're out there still trying. They're out there still playing. They still have pride.
If the start, not that the start ever doesn't matter, but I wonder how they react to getting punched in the mouth on senior day. if Nebraska comes out, gets a lead on them, it's dark, it's kind of cold, okay, all is lost. What, at what point do they break?
Here's a question mark. Do they want to go to a bowl game?
Yeah,
That's
and
a
who
good question.
Is that a motivator?
I mean, who would play in it too? There's a lot of people that would not play in
Who
that
would
bowl
coach?
Who would coach? Yeah.
The old Joe Paterno statue might coach them in the bowl game.
You could make an argument. Well, that Michigan State game kept them alive for a bowl. It's still definitely in reach with a win here against Nebraska. But then I ask myself, is that a motivator?
Yeah.
Even?
Yeah, do they care? Here's the other part.
Because some of them are ready for the season to end, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we'll move on. And we're not talking about how crappy Michigan State is either. That's not a very good football team.
That's true. Man, it's still the fact though that they did, they played like they did. How in the heck did that UCLA and Northwestern situation? And I know Aller got hurt against Northwestern, but it was fairly late in that game too. Like, how in the heck did those things? It has changed that program in 2 games.
It was the epitome of what we saw here in 2007.
Oh yes,
when Nebraska put all those eggs in the USC basket.
Yep.
And there was all the hopes of that year was on how they did in that game. And when that game went completely sideways, it created a spiral effect. They should have lost the next week to Ball State.
Yep.
But after that, the season was over. And I think Penn State suffered a miniature episode of that. The difference being Callahan coached out the rest of the year. Nebraska cleaned house in the front office first and then cleaned house in the coaching staff. Penn State cleaned the coaching staff or cleaned the head coach out.
Right, same front office, yeah.
All
right, finally.
Number 1.
John asked me to do it, so the bowl projections update. On 3 says Nashville Music City versus Vanderbilt, a road game against Diego Pavia. There. College Football News says Nashville against Memphis. Also another road game to some degree. CBS Sports says Nashville Music City against Tennessee. Yet another road game in Tennessee. Now that would be a repeat of a few years ago.
Yeah, 2016.
Man, that one. Sports Illustrated says ReliaQuest, the Tampa game, again versus Tennessee. And then ESPN, both the ESPN guys, Bonagura and Schlebach have Las Vegas Bowl against Utah. USA Today has the Vegas Bowl against Arizona State. Man, the Jeff Sims versus Nebraska thing would be something. And then the Pro Football Network, I hope they don't know what they are talking about, because did you see their projection?
No.
They got Nebraska going back to NYC in the Pinstripe Bowl to take on Louisville.
No thanks. No thanks on about 6 levels there.
Oh my gosh. That would make the Boston College game feel like the game of the century. Holy cow.
Wow, where's the respect for Louisville?
I don't want any piece of
Jeff Brom.
Yeah,
Come on.
I don't want Jeff Brom, and I don't want Yankee Stadium again.
All right, so there you go.
Jeez,
those are your
like a true Royals
give me
fan.
come on. Where we talked to Kyle Crooks yesterday. He wants Texas in Tampa. That's what it is.
Sign me up for that.
Texas in Tampa.
Let's go.
We'll see. All right, 7:57.
Better win, baby.
That's it for the morning drive. Brought to you by Stonebridge Insurance and Wealth Management on KLI.
Thinking Huskers.
God, unbelievable!
Think 1499.3 KLIN.
Raiola takes a snap, fade route, back run to the end zone. Touchdown, Huskers! Isaiah Hunter for the Husker touchdown.
Who do you think you're fooling? Nobody's thinking about their job the day before a Husker game.
Backpedals the throw, blitz picked up. Harris went out deep right sideline. 50-50 ball. It's picked off. The black shirts with the dagger. Malcolm Hartzog with a giant pick. Sails the night for the Big Red. Drifts back to throw, dumps it to an underneath crosser. Goody made the catch, got popped. Ball's loose, but they say incomplete.
This is the Friday Husker Tailgate with Jack Mitchell, Nate Rohr, John Bishop, and Kevin Suits on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN. We'll introduce you, but we can't guarantee you'll get along. It's the Friday Husker Tailgate Opposition Disposition on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
It's the third hour of the Friday Husker Tailgate on 1499.3 KLIN.
There you go. Nate's saving a little extra because the Chiefs are on life support on Sunday.
Needed against the Colts.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this, John, but my mom has turned into quite the Chiefs fan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she didn't ever follow NFL football
Is it
all
the whole
that much.
Taylor Swift?
No,
Travis
it's not
Kelce?
that with her.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my daughter, but it's not that.
yeah.
It was before that.
Okay.
It was before that. But she's become this huge Chiefs fan, and so for her birthday this year, I got her tickets to this game on Sunday. So I am taking her and Johnny, and I have never been to a regular season NFL game in my life.
Oh, really?
This will be my first ever.
Okay.
I went to a preseason game in Arrowhead in the 90s when they played the Rams years and years ago. But yeah, this will be my first ever. And I'm just gonna sit in the stands and talk to Chiefs fans and be like, hear that PA guy? I do a radio show with him. And they're not gonna believe me. It's gonna be pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
It's gonna be
looking
pretty
forward
cool.
to it. Hey, you were in the stands for the Cincinnati game.
Yes.
So
Yep. I did see. I'll be there 2 games in Arrowhead this year.
Well, at least you get a noon kickoff too. I think that's better.
Yeah.
Especially for the and I know it's an earlier morning. I assume you're going down very.
Yeah,
early
we're gonna
Sunday
get up.
morning.
We're just gonna go up on Sunday morning. We're gonna get up. I told Johnny and my mom we're leaving at 6 a.m. So we'll roll in there hopefully around 9, shortly after the lots open, and I hear it's quite a scene down there in the lots.
Yes.
So
Great
I
smells
look forward
down
to
there.
that. Hopefully there'll be people willing to give away some free food that they've made.
You
Me.
will
And again, I'll drop Nate Rohr's name.
Here's the key: you got to go down there. Make sure you dress up in Colts gear, because Chiefs fans are notoriously great at welcoming opposing fan bases. They love opposing fan bases. They're very much like Husker fans.
Okay.
They'll applaud the opposing team when they come on the field.
Not
Right.
quite.
Very polite, very nice folks. They certainly won't call you names from afar like they did with the time I was down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, hey, dust off your Trev Alberts jersey.
I should get a Trev Alberts.
Was he 51?
Yeah, 51 with
51
the
with the Colts.
51,
That would be
when the-
that would actually be hilarious
or-
if you walked in there with an Alberts 51
Alberts.
jersey.
Or Kenny Clark jersey.
Ooh,
there we
there you
go.
go.
He played for the Colts for a
Well,
while.
Amir Abdullah is a kick returner for the Colts. So
That's true.
if you could
I mean,
next
if I
day-
use my old formula to determine who I cheer for in games, which is simply an accounting of who has the most former Huskers, I don't know if the Chiefs have one.
they don't. I mean,
No.
DiCaprio Boodle was on their practice squad. I think he was on their practice squad
Does
last
does Cody Glenn still play for the Colts?
year. No.
No, I don't
No.
think so.
No, he's been as for
I
a
don't think
decade.
so.
But hey, there's a big picture of Will Shields that I walk by pretty much every
And
game day.
there is my other end. So any tailgate to get free barbecue, I'm going to have 2 plays. Number 1, I personally know the PA announcer.
Yep.
You do not. I'll call him right now. You believe me? I'll call him. You want me to do? I'll
Yeah.
call him right now. So if you get some calls, please answer.
Sure.
Number 1. And then number 2, also, Will Shields got married in my backyard.
Yeah.
And that is also, and I'll take the picture.
You should go down with a sandwich board that says that.
Will
Shields got married in my
I
backyard.
should. Everyone's gonna be like, no. And then I'll have the picture that I can pull up of Will and his now wife Senya and my dad doing the vows in my own backyard.
Yes,
which is a true, slightly long but true story.
That honestly, you should have a T-shirt made or something.
I should get a T-shirt made with my dad.
Will Shields got married in my backyard.
Yes. And that union.
I think that would get you some free stuff.
I should find that picture because my dad is wearing the funniest 90s tie that you will ever see in that. Like when pastels were very big, 90s tie in that picture. But yes, that
it wasn't out of the D&E collection.
I'm still mad because I didn't get to attend. And the backstory of it is my wife knew, or excuse me, my wife. I didn't know my wife then. I have no idea who my wife was then. My mom worked with Will Shields' wife, then fiance, right? And they knew each other through connections. And he was getting ready for the draft, and they didn't have time.
Right,
they didn't have time to do.
They were just poor college students.
Full-fledged wedding.
Yeah.
Right. And they already had a child, and his Siobhan's older sister was already born. She was a flower girl in it. And so they needed to get ready for the draft that year or so, or the season that year. So it was in July or August. Yeah. So I guess it was after the draft, and he got married there. And I was so mad because I had church camp. I was gone. I didn't even get to be there for it, for the future Hall of Famer to get married in my backyard.
Oof.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So, but in any case, we'll be there. But we're here to talk about Penn State now, not for me to tell stories about Will Shields getting married in my backyard. So John, we already did kind of a whole, if you want to go back and didn't hear our first segment, we kind of did a sort of a look back and some lamenting of the fact that Nebraska and Penn State, this rivalry probably should have been more in the Big Ten. It made a whole lot of sense, and for a variety of reasons, it didn't develop, and a big part of it was the scheduling, and then just the weirdness of a few of the games. In particular, the post-Sandusky game. But in any case, we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go back pre-1982. John said his piece about 1982. So we are going back to 1979 today, John.
This is when the rivalry got rekindled. They hadn't played since the 50s. Penn State was coming off the loss in the Sugar Bowl. Nebraska was coming off the loss in the Orange Bowl. Both of these teams could have played the year before. If Nebraska had beaten Missouri, it would have very likely been an Orange Bowl, Nebraska, Penn State for the national title in 1979, New Year's Day, 1979. Obviously, it didn't happen, but these teams were on the schedule against each other. Penn State gets off to a great start. They get a touchdown on their first possession. Then they get a pick six, and Nebraska's down 14-0 in the second quarter, and that is when the comeback started.
On the left hash mark, they come over the football. Redwine, the I-back. Hager, the quarterback, calls the count. He fakes a handoff. He's going to throw. In there, Junior Miller. Touchdown. Touchdown, Junior. Smooth as whipped cream Junior got in behind there and took a throw a little bit low, but still on the hands, and he controlled it over the goal line into the end zone. He had two men on him, Gladys and Urquhart. Two men were trying to cover him, but smooth old Junior got in between. Hager made the throw on the money, the 5 for the extra point. The kick is up, and the kick by Shukup is good, and the score is now 14-7. With only 52 seconds gone in the second quarter, and Nebraska went 85 yards in 13 plays. Tim Hager putting it in the hands of slippery Junior Miller.
But that wasn't it. That wasn't it. This was going to be a big, big quarter, and on the next drive, they would connect again. The connection of Tim Hager to Junior Miller.
Tight flanker to the left side. Tight slot to the left to Steele. The quarterback, Timmy Hager. Fakes his handoff. He keeps. He rolls. He wants to throw. He's going long to Junior Miller. To the 30. To the 25. To the 20. He's all the way in. Touchdown. mama. Ain't he pretty? Oh, wow. He got in behind his man, Urquhart. He had him beat, and he just took the chains right out of his pocket. He stripped him clean, went all the way down. Junior Miller, 70 yards. He took a perfect throw from Timmy Hager. Hager really put it on the money, and then Junior put it on the end zone. There's the kick for the extra point, and it's a tie-ball game. Man, woman, and child, what a throw and what a run. One man had his hands on him. Junior turned around and gave him the straight arm. That was Urquhart, the linebacker. And he had his nose stuck in the turf as Junior went trotting over the end line. Touchdown and a tie-ball game. The Huskers have come back and really shown some class in doing it.
Lyle was in his bag in this game, man.
Yeah,
He was really excited. And then on the next drive,
Hip is the I-back. Franklin the fullback. Hager has his flanker wide to the right side. Hager calling the count on 3rd and 11. High ball game, 14-all. Hager fakes his handoff. He gives it to Kenny Brown on the reverse, running upfield to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! Yards. Let me give you that play. On the right side, it was Kenny Brown flanking wide to the right. All of the flow went to the right side, and it looked like a pitch to the I-back. The pitch actually went to the I-back, but Kenny Brown cuts inside him and intercepts the toss and swung wide on the reverse to the left side and went in for the TD and the try for the point, and Sukup hits it, and it's 21-14. Nebraska is on top with 6:02 left to play in the second quarter. And how do you like those apples? Isn't this something else? This crowd is dingy, and they got a right to be dingy. What a show this is.
it was really a good play, and Lyle described it very well there at the end. It looked like they were running toss to the right on 3rd and 11, and Kenny Brown, who was coming in motion, just cut in between the quarterback and the I-back, grabbed the ball and went around left end and was untouched by human hands.
Maybe they ought to check that out, that play with Ja'Cory Barney.
It's not a bad idea.
Huh?
It's not a bad idea, but the scoring wasn't done yet. One final touchdown in a 4-touchdown second quarter.
The ball on the left hash mark. 2nd down 4. The ball at the 5. Hager, the quarterback, calls the count. He gives over to Franklin. Franklin's in there. Touchdown.
I love how they just used to let the crowd go. It's a lost art, friends. Let the crowd make the noise.
Kelly Salfeld and Randy Schleusner and Dan Steiner really blocking up front. And Andrew Franklin scores it from 5 yards out. We're ready for the try for the extra point and waiting for the snap from center. Hager, hands outstretched, the ball is down, the kick is up, and the kick is good, and the score goes to 28-14. And right here, Ken, I want to say something. You know, and I know, Penn State is a fine football team. They have been for years and years and years. And they are probably maybe not as good this year as one year, but you can't say they are not that far off. They are a good football team year in and year out. But I never in my life can remember seeing any Nebraska football team score 4 touchdowns and so completely take over a good football team as Nebraska has done with Penn State in less than a quarter of time of playing football. It's just an unbelievable performance.
So Nebraska would go on to win 42-17. But yeah,
Yes.
This was kind of pre-scoring explosion, but 4 touchdowns against Penn State. And this was a good Penn State team. You know, Matt Millen was on this team.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they had good ball players, and Nebraska took them to the woodshed this afternoon.
All right, there you go. So Nebraska, Penn State. Let's talk a little bit about Penn State, because so much is focused on the large macro things that have been going on with Penn State since the firing. That it's kind of it's like I haven't thought about them like I have other Big Ten teams in terms of what's happening at the micro level with Penn State. Now, the biggest thing that people probably do know is that their quarterback coming into the year, who I mean, it's frankly kind of a really sad story for Drew Aller, right?
Yeah.
He comes in with one of the rare college quarterbacks that stuck it out, right? And there was no reason for him to leave, but he was the only quarterback in the Big Ten. I looked at it coming into this year that had multiple starting years at that school where he started.
Yeah.
Right. That used to be the norm. He's the only one. He's kind of a unicorn to some degree. And they come in, obviously, national championship aspirations. I don't know if they were the overall plurality favorite to win the national championship. If they weren't, they were close. And then obviously the season falls apart. They lose that game. And then in the game where James Franklin gets fired after it, Drew Aller has a season-ending injury. Yeah. And so they now have been with their second string quarterback throughout the rest of the year. And that obviously has dinged them a little bit when you lose a guy with Aller's experience. But on the other hand, you know, they're on their offense, John. And again, I heard on your show yesterday kind of the description about these two running backs that they've got in Singleton and Katron Allen. They're two different styles. Allen's kind of kept up doing what he did last year. Singleton, not as much. One's more of an outside guy. One of them's more of a between the tackles guy, but they're both NFL guys.
Yeah, they are. They're really good running backs. Katron Allen's just been incredibly consistent in his last 3 years. Basically a 5 to 5.5 yard a carry guy. You know, he's going to get you basically a touchdown a game. Just extremely, extremely consistent, which is obviously concerning if you're Nebraska because they've been very susceptible in between the tackles. Not as much this year out of Nicholas Singleton, who's been a little under 4 yards a carry, but still has 9 touchdowns this year. So, you know, he is still a dangerous threat and just gives them that switch up. They ran the ball 50 times last week against Michigan State. Yeah. Of all the weeks that NBC decides that we're going to preempt Saturday Night Live so we can air a random, was it Washington, UCLA late night football game, this is the week to do it because this Nebraska-Penn State game might be a quick game, all things considered. Yeah. Both teams are probably going to run it a lot. That clock's going to keep moving. We could be in and out of there in 2.5 hours, which if you're Matt Rule, you're like, good. We get home earlier because we got a short week coming up.
Yeah, so, I got to be down at Arrowhead at 7, so that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, so I think, you know, this certainly has a chance to be a very rapidly paced game. That said, you know, Penn State, you know, will still throw the ball on occasion. Grunkemeyer, the quarterback, the freshman that has come in, has performed, I would say, admirably. All things considered, especially given the fact that, you know, he wasn't really expected to do a lot. 65% of his passes have been completed, but he has thrown 4 interceptions this year. So a little bit turnover prone at times. Granted, he's played the 2 best teams unequivocally in the Big Ten this year in Ohio State and Indiana. So, you know, what he's going to do against Nebraska, who obviously has one of the best secondaries in the country. I expect there to be a lot of runs in this game. A lot of runs.
Yes. You look at the matchup and every statistical category in both directions sort of makes that seem likely, right? Penn State's lack of success through the air, they're really good pass defense. Nebraska's somewhat lack of success through the air, they're really good pass defense. I mean, in both of those situations, and then both teams, I mean, you got 3 of the top 10 running backs, probably in the maybe top 8 running backs in the NFL draft here in this game.
And you think about it, I mean, on the all-conference teams, they go 3 deep, don't they? On the all Big Ten teams?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so, and they pick 2 running backs per team. So that's 6 running backs. Half of them are playing in this game.
Yeah.
You know?
You're probably right. Yeah.
And at least one of, if not both of your first teamers. You know, Katron Allen will be up there as well, but you've got it's a run the ball guy game, even though the weather's not going to be terrible. 2 freshman quarterbacks going at it. Yeah, you get the ball out of their hands in a hurry, and the quickest way you can do it is by handing off to the guy right next to him. And, you know, both defenses' strength is defending the pass. So, you know, you feel like Nebraska, you feel like both teams will try to attack the run game.
The other interesting thing about this is a narrative that I'm kind of surprised hasn't been more front and center. There's just been so much distraction, but after the Minnesota game, you just wondered if whoever was playing quarterback was ever going to be able to stay upright enough to have this be a functional offense. And there's been 2 sacks in however many games, 3 games since then. And one of them was a result of an injury, right? That happened during the play.
Right.
And the other one was the one where Dylan Raiola broke his leg.
Correct.
That's it. Which is just, I never would have guessed that coming out of that Minnesota game. Now we get to find out if that is actually going to hold up, because Penn State, good pass rush, right? Yeah. I mean, this is a team that they've got 2.2 sacks per game, which isn't super gaudy, but as we've talked about before, they got the guys, and they have gotten to the quarterback.
They do, but what have we seen the last couple of games? Quicker reads, especially against UCLA.
Yes, a bunch of it has been play calling too.
It's the play calling, I think, has matched what Nebraska can do. If Nebraska gets into a straight drop back game, that's bad.
They're in trouble.
Now the question will be, how would TJ handle that situation, right? Because we have not seen him under duress. Yep. And that to me is one of the biggest questions in this game, is how will TJ handle situations where he is not in the advantage? Because 2 weeks ago against UCLA, always ahead of the chains. Mm-hmm. They're not always going to be ahead of the chains, presumably tomorrow night against Penn State. So what do you call in those situations? What are you looking for in those spots? Will there have to be some deeper passes down the field in order to convert? Or will Nebraska play it a little close to the vest if they're facing like a 3rd and 8? Well, let's just, run a draw or, throw our screen pass and see if we can, get it that way. If not, we'll be happy to, send Archie out there and we'll play field position. How that's going to be handled will be rather interesting, because it'll really be the first time this year that TJ Lateef will be under any duress. If that happens, how does Nebraska handle that? That's probably going to tell us everything we need to know, or a lot of what we need to know about the result of tomorrow's game.
One other note, Penn State, number 1, and I don't know exactly how the ESPN FPI does these numbers, but Penn State, number 1 in special teams efficiency in the nation, which is interesting to me because they don't have real gaudy return numbers or anything like that. Now, Nebraska's 6th, but this could be one of those games where which special teams, once again, call me if you've heard this before, but which special teams unit either makes a play or doesn't make a negative play, right? Essentially.
Penn State does have a block kick for a touchdown this year, so that probably factors in a bit.
It's probably been good kicking, I suppose, kicking field goals.
Field goal kicking this year, 12 of 13. Ryan Barker is their main place kicker, so he's been very efficient. Punting the football this year, their punter, Wowusu, I believe is how you pronounce it, 46 yards a kick. So they've been solid, very solid.
Yep, solid. And Penn State doesn't get penalized.
Yeah,
almost never gets penalized. Very rarely.
That's
triggers. Nebraska's
doing well too.
Light on penalties too.
All I'm saying is, and far be it for me not to listen to myself, but don't be surprised if there are not holding penalties called when holding is happening.
It felt like last week, and maybe it was just a me thing, just watching across the college landscape. It felt like last week there were more holding calls being called.
Interesting.
Dare to dream.
It felt like it. And ironically, though, there was one big non-hold that wasn't called against Michigan that could have given Northwestern the win.
Oh,
I'm still very, very upset about
Michigan
that. Well, as someone who should have gotten that point.
Although if there's one team I don't feel sorry for when it happens to them, it's Northwestern, because they've been the beneficiary of that one.
The Big Ten office had a lot of consternation. Who are we?
Pat Fitzgerald teams don't hold. All right, 8:35. We'll take a break.
He's not coaching anymore. He can't hurt you.
Not now, but
not for long. Wait till
it sounds like he's going to rise from the dead.
Wait till he takes over Michigan State next year. All right, 8:35. We'll take a break. He'll be back with us next Wednesday. All right, stick around. More Friday Husker Tailgate coming up on KLIN.
When you're thinking Huskers.
For 3 to tie the game right. Will you? Betcha! Are you kidding me?
Think 1499.3 KLIN. Welcome back to the Friday Husker Tailgate on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Second segment, hour 3. We do have the picks coming up. Kevin Suits will be back with us on Wednesday. John will be gone there. He'll be in Vegas, but doing Creighton basketball. But Kevin will be back with us. He's traveling to Penn State, and so be looking for his coverage on 10-11 here over the course of the next few days. Guys, let's talk a little bit more about this game from kind of Nebraska's perspective. You know, one thing that we haven't really gotten into, oddly enough, because it was all we talked about last week, was TJ Lateef against this Penn State defense. John, how similar do you think sort of the game plan looks to what we saw last week with TJ Lateef, Emmett Johnson, throwing the ball to Emmett Johnson out of the backfield obviously was something that they look to do a lot. Give him some of those throws. But they did have confidence throwing him down the stretch. A couple of those passes on that long drive as well, but it's a different defense this time around.
I mean, you would expect that there will have to be some changes just because Jim Knowles is, got a lot better pieces to work with than UCLA does, and, does have a tendency to get pretty creative when necessary. I mean, it will need to be a little bit different, but a lot of the basic tenets are going to be there. And we talked about this earlier. Penn State has struggled with tackles this year. Mm-hmm. They have missed a lot of tackles this year. And while that improved last week against Michigan State, one thing Emmett Johnson's been exceptional at this year is missing tackles. He's been very, very hard to bring down, especially on first contact. Even though the yards after contact numbers don't show it, it sometimes isn't even breaking a tackle. It's avoiding a tackle.
Yeah.
And if you're a team that already has some issues making tackles, you bring a guy in who can avoid them. I think this has, if Nebraska's going to win, and this sounds very elementary, but Emmett's going to have a big day.
Yeah.
If Nebraska's going to win. But I think the path is there because Nebraska has blocked it well up front. Their line yards have been very good this year. And Penn State's been a little susceptible bringing guys to the ground. And so you combine those things with Emmett Johnson, who, is playing his best football ever right now. I think, the pathway to a win will be that. So again, Emmett's going to be a prime focal point. But as far as it goes to TJ, if you have that luxury in there, I still think you're going to see and how they decide to attack with TJ's legs. Mm-hmm. I thought it was shrewdly a great move on the first play of the game in the Rose Bowl that TJ kept it and ran, got a first down.
Mm-hmm.
And that just set the stage. But he only carried it 4 more times the rest of the way. Something else to watch for in this game are scrambles. We talked about it earlier. What is Nebraska going to do if they get put behind the chains? Don't be surprised if TJ converts at least one, we'll call it 3rd and medium to 3rd and long-ish with his legs because he broke contain. Because Penn State has had an issue at times with not just the mobile quarterback and designed runs, but also in scramble situations. So if TJ's starting to feel the heat, I wouldn't be surprised if the instructions were get the H out of there.
Yeah.
Get outside and go. Run. See if you can make something happen. And I think TJ, if he can convert a couple of third downs with his legs and extend those drives and get into that scoring zone, then, I think you'll be in really, really good shape. The plan will look a lot similar because those are the things that TJ does well, but there will be some other changes. And I do think there will have to be a deep shot or two just to keep Penn State honest, because I expect them to load the box and say, nope, you ain't running. We're making this freshman beat us. UCLA was not capable of doing that.
Right. You talk about the importance of the first play and the fact that TJ Lateef ran it on the first play. Call me crazy, but start out with some play action. I mean,
sure.
Very first play,
yeah.
Fake it to Emmett Johnson and try and find somebody downfield just to set the tone, just to get it in their head. Because, you're right. Maybe 80%. This game plan's basically 80% similar. A little more diversity, a little more in terms of deep balls, but at the same time, Emmett Johnson's your best player. He's playing the best, and it's Penn State's defensive weakness. Give him the damn ball. Yeah. It's just that simple. And you know what? The picture is going to be very similar the other way. So, this is going to be, again, a Big Ten West football game where it's run the ball, low possessions, churn your way down the field. Punts aren't necessarily a bad thing. Turnovers are inexcusable and disasters. So, it's going to be very similar. I think, in character to the game we saw against UCLA.
When Penn State has the ball, I think the biggest thing that gives me pause in thinking about this game for Nebraska is just those running backs. And, we saw it against USC. USC was able to get chunk yards with their tailback up the middle, play after play. And they had the quarterback run going too.
Yeah.
And that's, but more than that. And then I think that what happened against Michigan too, when Nebraska has seen good offensive lines, good running backs. They've been vulnerable. They've been vulnerable.
Very
And
vulnerable.
it hasn't necessarily been the 60-yard run, but it's just been like the 12-yard run.
Yep.
Right.
Chunk plays.
Repeatedly. And some of that against Minnesota too, I think. But that to me is the biggest concern for Nebraska's defense going in, and probably the whole game for Nebraska, to be honest, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And Penn State was willing to run it 50 times last week against Michigan State, and it paid off handsomely. And it was very similar to, old school Nebraska game plan where, T.O. would run it 50, 60 times a game. But then there'd be those 12 or 13 passes, 5 of which were off play action where you hit a tight end down the field or you hit a wide receiver down the field, and it made for a huge play. That's kind of what Penn State did to the Spartans last week. And certainly that is possible this week. The good news is you have a great secondary back there who's covering those receivers. Yep. And so you hope that will be mitigated just a bit. So for Nebraska, it's really about stopping the run, and especially between the tackles.
Yeah, you've got to crowd the box against these guys and make them beat you throwing the football, because that's where you want this game. You want this game with Grunkemeyer dropping back and trying to beat you down the
I'd
field.
love Nebraska to get some picks, some interceptions, right?
Yeah.
Sierra, let's get Sierra Wright an interception in these last 2 games. Could we get him a stat?
It's possible. I mean, Grunkemeyer has thrown 4 this year.
The problem
is
if they ever do like some kind of an All-American team, they play everyone's highlights, they're going to play Sierra Wright's, and it's just kind of
back
him running onto the field, him stretching out.
Yeah.
All right.
Him in a back pedal.
Picks are coming up next. Save 47 on KLIN.
When you're thinking Huskers,
That swung on it, drilled towards right field, towards the angling, towards the waterfall, and splashed out.
think 1499.3 KLIN. everything to these guys. Let the trash talk begin. It's time to call your shot in the Friday Husker Tailgate Pigskin Picks of the Week. Presented by Exchange Bank on Lincoln's Husker 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, it is time for our picks last week. An update. Well, just consistency this year. I got 4 last week, which is also what John got. He also got 4 for me. Our Navy got a victory for me, as I predicted on Veterans Day week. So I called that one correctly.
I'd be winning this by like 10 points if my teams would just hold on. It's like the Seinfeld line, you know. You can take the reservation, but you got to hold the reservation. My teams can cover the spread.
Yeah.
But you've got to hold the victory.
Yeah. Michigan lived up to their name, as John predicted there. And but Kevin got 3. He did get Florida covering against Lane. Was closest also on the Penn State, Michigan State score, which we did last week. And Nate had a good head-to-head week, but the NC State pick against Miami for the upset.
I texted you when that thing was 21-0. Yep, looks like another winner. You were up in Sioux Falls. I looked at that score and I went, damn it.
All right, so Kevin's gone, but I do have his picks here. So same order that we've been going all year. Really no changes ever on this thing. I got 46. John's got 41. Kevin's got 34. Nate's got 25.
Playing for next year.
Here we go. All right, so here's the first one. Pitt at Georgia Tech. ACC, big implications actually for the ACC title game on this one. I think Pitt just didn't even prepare for the Notre Dame game and spent 2 weeks getting ready for this game. I'm going to take Pitt in this one over Georgia Tech, John.
Yellow Jackets. Ramblin' Wreck. Let's go, GT.
Kevin's with you. He will take Georgia Tech.
Rambling wreck of Georgia Tech, and I'm a hell of an engineer.
All right, you guys.
Hell of an engineer.
That's nice.
You guys could pick up a point on me there. Good luck. All right, Tennessee at Florida. Man, this used to be a huge early game. This reminds me of the late 90s so much. Early
and those brown CBS graphics.
Yes.
Remember those ugly things?
So
Peyton Manning losing again to Florida.
Florida, another team in the midst of a coaching search, but they've been playing okay, for the most part. And so I think I'll stick with them. I think they care about this game. I'll give Florida on this one.
I'm in comeback mode here, so I'll go Tennessee.
All right, chance to pick up 2. Kevin's with you as well. You want to do it again?
I'm riding with Rocky Top here. I'm not buying the Gators.
I could be throwing away my lead this week. Illinois at Wisconsin. I think I'll continue doing it here.
Whoa!
Again, I think Wisconsin has got a different mindset right now after just having. And I know last week notwithstanding, that was against Indiana. I've always liked Wisconsin. You guys know that, so I will take Wisconsin. Go Badgers! Jump around.
Brett Burt going back to Wisconsin. He's got more motivation for this game. He wants to show all those people in red that they're crazy. Illinois.
Well, you know who Kevin took on this one. Kevin took Illinois.
Looks like I'm riding with Kevin and
all right,
and Bishop here too.
All 3 games, I am different than the rest of you. Can we do it with 4? BYU at Cincinnati? Heck, maybe. I'll take Cincinnati at home at Nippert. Lively atmosphere. BYU didn't come through for me last against Texas Tech a couple of weeks ago. So I have switched off them again, back to Cincinnati.
This is one where I will agree with you. I'll take the Bearcats.
Whoa.
Kevin's on BYU for this one. He's opposite me on every.
I'm going BYU. I don't feel great. I was surprised. The line's only 1.5. It's not like Nippert Stadium is that hostile an atmosphere, but
we'll see. We'll see. All right, upset of the week, touchdown or more underdog. Who do you have? Oh, I guess I'm first. Yep. I will take, watch out for this one. Maryland getting 14.5 against Michigan, who's got one thing on their mind right now, and it is absolutely not Maryland. Watch out for the Terps to win this one outright against Michigan.
I would root for this in a big-time way. I'm going to go with a team who saw its playoff hopes go up in smoke last week. Sing it with me, boys. They're getting 9. Ooh, Penn Big Suey, Razorback +9 at Texas.
Oh boy, Texas loses that one. A better chance we see them in a bowl game too. Kevin is going to go with an odd one here. He's going Georgia Southern, getting 10.5 against Old Dominion.
Wow.
I have nothing to say about that. I don't know anything about why he picked that.
Is Clay Helton still the coach there at Georgia Southern?
Oh, wow. So I had this written down. You can see it. I'm going to show the camera. Arkansas. I'm taking the Razorbacks for the upset, too.
Hey, can I change my pick?
Doing something.
Can I change my pick?
Yeah, the way I've gone.
No kidding.
He's drafting off me.
I'm doing something very dangerous here. I am trusting Bobby Petrino. Thought I'd never trust him in my life.
Hey, he ain't right. You ain't riding shotgun on a motorcycle.
When has that ever gone wrong for anyone?
Indeed. But
all right.
Here we go.
Last but not least, the score, Nebraska against Penn State. Guys, I don't know. The true answer, if I can answer this way, my answer is I don't know. But we have to make a prediction. And, I tried to do the thing for a while, picking against Nebraska to anti-jinx it. That didn't work. So whatever. Heck, Nebraska's won close games this year. Nebraska scores 28 points a lot of the time. Nebraska 28, Penn State 27.
I really like Nebraska against the number. And so I figured, well, if I like them against the number, why don't I just take them?
Talk yourself into
Nebraska 20, Penn State 17.
Ooh. Kevin is going the other way on this one.
Kevin Suits hates Nebraska football. It's official.
Penn State 24, Nebraska 21.
John, I'm sorry. I had it written down before you said a word.
No!
21-17
Huskers.
No! You're screwed, John!
Either that or we're tag teaming.
Listen, Pat Smith's gonna come back and kick the game-winning field goal. It's gonna be 20-17.
Pat Smith
20-17.
Where's Pat Smith these days? You don't hear as much about him, do you?
I guarantee you, he's probably working for American Family Insurance.
They should have him.
Yeah.
They used to bring Peter and Wistrom down on the sideline. They had a Pat Smith on the sideline on this game.
Yeah,
they should fire ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I brought a special guest for you. Pat Smith to address the team. Who?
Woo!
Shout out Pat Smith. I'm going to look him up after this. That's it for us this week. Actually, I'll be back here this afternoon because we do have a show before Nebraska basketball. 7:30 Husker basketball pregame, game at 8:30, but I'll be here at 5, joining John and Josh on 1620 The Zone as well then. See you then, KLIM.
You're listening to the Friday Husker Tailgate.